All right, you are live.
Okay, welcome to our scheduled GovOp committee meeting for tonight, Monday, July 8th, 2024. Councillors who are on this committee are Councillor Fish, Councillor Haas, Councillor Schaefer, and Councillor Trumbull. And those who are at the table and are not part of this committee are Councillor Leonard, Councillor Fournier, and Councillor Chair Peltier. And we are joined by Assistant City Manager Courtney O'Donnell, and we have an extensive agenda.
Yes, we do.
So do you want to lead us with the first one, please? The first
Yes.
item?
The first item is a resolve authorizing the city manager to accept and appropriate $1,231,588 in McKinney-Vento homelessness assistance funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. These funds, they come in pieces. You'll notice on the order that they're in 4 separate grants. But what they do is they fund the program that we reference a lot called Shelter Plus Care. And that directly helps put people into housing and gives them the support they need to be successful. This is a long-standing grant that the Public Health Department has received. And I do apologize, there's a little bit of miscommunication, so you're stuck with me giving an explanation, and I'm not as well versed as some other folks. But this is this resolve will require 2 readings. It's very important to the work that our Public Health Department does. And so, of course, if there's any questions I can't answer, I'm happy to pass them along and have them answered in short order at the next meeting.
Any questions? Yes, Councillor Fish.
If we accept the funds in different stages, is this particular one we're authorizing now, is that earmarked for a particular program? Do you know?
Yeah, it's Shelter Plus Care.
Oh, this
Sorry,
is
I didn't make it very
okay,
clear.
okay,
It's
this is.
the way the funds come through the continuum of care. It shows up as like 4 separate grants, but we're actually accepting them all together because they all support the same programming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I move approval.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. It's approved. My question is actually for this one, because I know families with the children benefit from this. Is it for individuals as well, or just for families with the children?
I believe it can be individuals,
For
but I can
individuals.
double check that.
Okay.
And certainly at a next public meeting, just clarify for sure.
And my second question is, so we used to have this before, right? It's not just this
Yes,
year,
this is
because this is every
long-standing.
year. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess we can move to the second item on the agenda.
Great. The next item is climate energy efficiency and conservation block grant funding update. You may recall, Anya Collette, planning officer, and I had come to you previously over this funding. We originally intended to use it for e-bikes and things of that nature, but we have some additional information that Anya is here to share with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you. So we did find out from the Department of Energy that the bike infrastructure we had planned for the funding was not eligible. So we had to shift gears and did confirm that we can potentially spend the funding on an EV transition plan for municipal vehicles, which would help us kind of pinpoint what would be the easiest and highest priorities vehicles in the city's fleet for us to electrify, and then where would we need to put charging and how all that would work. It would really help us wrap our heads around that process. And doing that was a recommendation of the Climate Action Plan, so it would be furthering our implementation of that. And then we also proposed to use the other portion of the funding to purchase an EV for general city use for things like going to conferences and things of that nature, as well as installing a charger for that. And then there is also funding that can be used from Efficiency Maine and from the federal government for purchasing EVs for municipal use. So we would also use that funding as well to supplement. And we do still intend to look at ways we can implement the bicycle infrastructure we had originally planned. We're just looking at other funding mechanisms for that because it's definitely still a need. And then as far as we were looking at initially doing some more public EV charging stations, but Efficiency Maine actually just released several RFPs actually for entities to install EV charging stations in various locations. The one that's most relevant to us is to install those in public gathering places. And so just looking at the available places that we have around town, and and I guess that's kind of a separate item than what I was going to, but, we were looking at Hayford Park and then also the Waterfront Park as, good locations. So I guess I just would open it up to any questions or.
Yeah, Councillor Bernard.
Thank you for the report. I was curious as to, and maybe you can't answer this question. What were the reasons as to why our initial bicycle plans were rejected for funding?
They said, and they consulted with their legal team at DOE, but they said it wouldn't result in a direct reduction in emissions. I argue with that, but that's what they told us. So just kind of went on.
Did they have any coordinating information that made that decision as to that came to those conclusions? Or did they provide anything like that?
No, they didn't give me any details other than they consulted with their legal team and that was the conclusion they came to. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Trumbull.
I'm fine with the plan. The only comment I would make is the timing of this. Maybe it might make sense while as you talk about having some vehicles for like going to conferences. It's the old new city hall. We put some in. This would be the time to do it, even though it's not inside city hall. They're doing a lot of electrical work. So, I mean, maybe they could incorporate that in the plan for some charging stations outside of city hall.
Do you mean, so we have the small lot next to the building just for employees?
Right.
although there's-
I would think if you had a couple of those designated for EV charging stations, maybe those ones that, maybe those two that were. I don't know who's assigned what, but maybe in that area, there might be a place to put one or two EV charging stations.
We can look into that.
How much total was this funding again? Was
Uh,
it 75,000?
About 76,000, yeah.
One of those uses like 10 or 15,000 a station and. two of
With
them.
electrical included, yeah, I mean roughly 10,000
Yeah.
probably.
Other questions?
So I think we do need,
Need a motion?
yeah, we will bring
approve.
back an order on the RFPs, but I think we need approval on both items, or am I right, on the grant funding and the RFPs?
No, you had already authorized us to apply for the funding.
Right.
So I guess, just a blanket order to move forward the recommendation and we'll make sure that the appropriate order is on the next council meeting later in the month. I move staff recommendation.
Second,
We have a more than a second, so it's approved to move.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And then the next item, if I may,
Yes,
leads
please.
right into this, which is a proposal to implement a fee for EV charging. You may recall, as Anya's mentioned, we years ago now installed some of EV chargers in various locations and we wanted people to get used to them and things, so we didn't originally charge, and we've kind of reached that point now where the recommendation is shifting, but I'll let Anya give a better overview of that.
So yeah, when we first installed the public EV chargers at the Abbott Square parking lot and the Pickering Square parking garage, the thought was, we just see how it goes. And at the time, EVs were kind of just in their, I don't want to say infancy, but I guess, the movement towards buying EVs wasn't as widespread, so it was kind of like more incentivizing that behavior. But we're seeing definitely an uptick in usage of the station since we installed them. EVs are definitely becoming more widespread. And so we do want to propose charging a fee for using those stations to cover the electricity costs. The electricity costs do differ at each location. I think at Pickering Square, it's lower, I think just because that location uses so much more electricity in general than Abbott Square. So we would be looking at having two different fees at each location. And I did just look around to see what other places charge, and it's roughly around what we would be looking at. So we proposed 25 cents per kilowatt hour at the Abbott Square parking lot, and then 12 cents per kilowatt hour at Pickering Square. And other locations were kind of in between those two numbers. And then we also propose charging a 50-cent fee per session to go towards the network cost, because we pay about $200 per port which is the handle, per year. And so if you all approve of that, we would, take it to the full council in a few weeks. And then we would look at giving people at least a month's notice, put signs up on the chargers and everything, let them know that it's coming. So I did just want to put that proposal out there. I do have, a kind of a question about logistics, but I guess I'll just stop for questions now.
Yes, Councillor
So I
Trumbull.
think it's great. Actually, when we started doing them, I thought we should have started charging. I don't think anybody bought an electric vehicle because they get free electricity from the city, but these are the ones under your department. What about like the ones at the Cross Center, and there must be some at the airport too? How are those operated? I mean, are those free as well?
There is actually not one at the airport right now.
Nothing at the airport?
No, there is one at Cross Center. I believe that's free.
There was something with Versa when they first put it in. That there was,
Yeah.
like a big promotion.
Yeah, and that one has been having issues actually, so it's not really being used. So that's kind of a separate conversation, but yeah, that's free currently.
All right.
We had looked at the airport, as part of the installation when we were looking at Abbott and Pickering Square, and at the time they were going through their master plan and all that, and we didn't want to. Because the infrastructure to put the electricity and everything is so important, we didn't want to kind of jump the gun by. Putting them perhaps where long-term they wouldn't be, but I do suspect at some point we'll be coming to you for
Right.
charging there.
Well, they leave, maybe even in that new lot while they're doing it, that might be, I don't know if that's gonna be long-term or short-term. I think it's gonna be a lot of long-term parking in there.
Yeah, there is actually fast chargers not that far away from the airport on the Odlin Road.
Yeah, and there's actually gonna be fast chargers coming to the Hannaford there, right?
Oh,
At the Union,
yeah. Okay.
Mall, but, the logistics of charging at the airport is kind of tricky just because of the way people use the parking.
Right,
And then, so I think having the level 3 nearby is probably gonna be most feasible for users of the airport to use. It's just my opinion, but.
Yes, Councillor Bertier.
My only question was, why is cost of electricity different at the two places?
Yeah, so I'm not positive on that, but I really think. And I could be wrong, but I think that when you, there's like levels of usage, and when you start using a lot more electricity, you get charged a different rate. And Pickering Square, the usage there is way more than it is Abbott Square. That's my
They
theory.
have small, medium, and large classes of
Yeah.
customers.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Fish.
Do you have an idea of what that means for cost per user?
Yep, so at Abbott Square, just basing it on like a mid-size SUV type EV, the cost to go from empty to full would be about $19. 20 if we charge the 50 cents fee, and then at Pickering Square it would be about $9 to $10 to go from empty to full, so. And I did just want to kind of bring up for discussion. We also have the charge point stations that are inside the gate at the Pickering Square garage, as were put in a few years ago. These numbers in this memo didn't include those. It's kind of tricky because people pay to park when they go inside the gate, but the ones outside the gate of the garage, you don't pay to park. There's not really a way we could, I think, do that. And then you don't pay to park if you're in the EV charging spots at Abbott Square. And so I wanted to put it to you all. Do we just blanket want to charge people the fee for electricity, no matter whether you're paying for parking, or do we want to like charge people to pay to park as well at Abbott Square, and then the only ones who wouldn't pay to park would be outside the gate at the
I'm not
garage?
sure we can charge Abbott either, because they're just before the.
Well,
The gate, I thought,
I think people have to,
or the passes, you mean?
yeah, there's
Yeah.
a kiosk there that if you park,
Yeah.
outside the gate, you have to go to the
Yeah.
kiosk, so. Just wanted to open those options up.
That would be tricky. I mean, I think less people would be using the one at Abbott if it has to be parking fees and then charging fees. I think that would,
It is more expensive to
Yeah.
charge with the electricity there, so.
So is everybody okay with differentiating whether you're paying for parking versus the electricity as opposed to both?
How much is parking?
I think it's the same as the garage, so $2 per hour, up to $6 a day.
Something like that.
It's just the garage is the first 2 hours are free. It's no,
Right.
nothing's free at Pickering, right? I mean, at
Abbott.
nothing's free. yeah.
Right.
I think that's true, yeah.
So how should we go with this?
Hmm.
I think they should pay, would anybody would pay the price, won't they?
We'll give them the choice to go wherever they wanna go.
Hmm.
I mean, okay, can we have a motion?
Yeah, so would we ever approve the other part of this? Are we need,
Yeah, we already moved the one before. You're talking about the one before, the item before?
So
Yeah, we
charge for
already,
the-
yeah, we
This
already.
is just to
moved it.
charge a fee for EV charging
Yeah.
moving forward, and if it's approved, it would be on the next council meeting, the 22nd.
I would move that.
Second.
Okay. I think,
Yes, the next one is an ordinance update for the Penjajawak Marsh and Bangor Mall Management Commission quorum update. Anya's here to speak about that too. I believe you're the staff person, right?
Yep.
Appointed for that commission. I will just note, this may look familiar to you because it wasn't that long ago that we went through the different committees and like reduced the numbers and things, and Anya had caught that we didn't update the quorum when we looked at the numbers overall for the committee. And so what is the quorum right now?
It's at 7 right now,
Yeah,
which is the full number of members on the committee.
Right.
So,
so we'd like to make that amendment down to 4, I believe,
yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah. So,
I mean, she can answer questions, but
yeah, those are all the details really.
yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Hmm.
Do you have an odd number other than, or no, you're just saying for a quorum?
For a quorum, yeah, 7 members, 4 would make a quorum.
looks like no questions.
That needs a motion.
We need a motion.
Yep.
I'll move it.
Second.
She moved and she seconded, and I think.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one. Thank you, Anya.
All right, the next one is the Bangor Community Action Team BCAT update. I have with me the police chief, Mark Hathaway, and oh, I know, but what's your title? Sorry.
Community officer.
Public Information Officer and Lieutenant? Sergeant, Jason McCambly.
Let's see.
Good evening. So a quick rundown, questions, how do you want to do?
An overview would be helpful, yeah?
Okay,
Please.
so I think you all know Jason. Jason manages the PCAP program for us. In 2022, we were looking for an alternative to police officers responding to wellness checks, quality of life issues, loitering, vagrancy. So we looked at programs around the country in Poland Street Response in Oregon, a similar model in Albuquerque, and the Mobile Crisis Unit in Olympia, Washington were the 3 that we looked at closely. We took a little from all those programs and developed a BCAP program. The BCAP program in the first year, we used community development block grant funding to get the program off the ground, pay for the vehicle and personnel costs and all the associated items and equipment they needed. Year 2, we are sharing the cost now. I think it's 50% our budget, 50% out of the block grant this year. Moving into year 3, I think it's going to be much the same. I'll have Jason talk about numbers. I suspect you'll have questions about the program itself, and we're happy to answer questions.
Questions first?
Questions? I have questions, but I'm gonna wait for other committee members. Any questions?
So the purpose of the program was to reduce a more appropriate response to those types of calls where a police officer is just not necessary. And the idea was to free up police officer time. And we have indeed done that. We were certainly more present in our schools this year, certainly in the morning than we typically would have been. Most of these calls come in, the calls waiting when the officers arrive for their early morning roll call. We've been able to shift a lot of these calls to the BCAP program, allowing our officers to do to engage in traditional police work, such as being around our schools in the morning when the students and staff are arriving. Most recently, there's been some concerns about speeding on State Street and crosswalk issues around Forest Avenue, so we've been able to place an officer up there, half a dozen or more times in the past week or two to mitigate those issues. So we are making the best of this and the intended goal, we are reaching our intended goals. And one is freeing up police officer time to engage in traffic enforcement, for example. And from that perspective, it is working. Questions about numbers or staffing?
That was my question actually about like, are you fully staffed now? How?
No.
Because I know you had issues in the past and I'm wondering where
The
we
first
are
year
right
was,
now.
the first year was a growing year. You know, we had some stumbles here and there, but we've overcome those. We have three people.
So we have
It's a
three out of
4-person
four.
unit. We have
Yeah,
three
3 out of
active.
4. Mhm.
So we are actively looking for a fourth person right now.
And so the 3 of them, they have been with you guys for a few months now?
Oh, gosh, several months. I mean,
The first one started the first week of October of last year. The second one came on, I believe it was 3 weeks after that, and the fourth one came on about another 3 weeks after, or third one came on another 3 weeks after that.
So a few months now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just about the organizational chart and hiring and the number of people, you said it's under Jason, but is the program actually, does it fall under the health department?
it did in year one.
Okay, it's
We
moved
manage it
completely
now.
your department,
Yes,
you hire them and you hire the people,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
I guess I didn't realize that transition.
Yeah, we're,
taking
yeah,
place.
yes.
Councillor Fish?
How many calls do you typically get that VCAT takes care of, and what is a typical situation, or the majority of the type of calls?
So since BCAT came to the police department, they've handled 866 calls, and that is as of today. They have handled 268 calls for vagrancy, 219 calls for public service, 209 welfare checks. So what that comes down to is somebody calls because I see somebody passed out on the park bench and I want to go talk to them. We have to send somebody called. Now, instead of sending an officer, we can send BCAT and find out, do they need services? Do they need a police officer? And every once in a while, something elevates the level where, yeah, we do need a police officer. They've checked abandoned properties and found somebody living there. So call an officer, clear the building, and then it goes back down to just BCAT dealing with the problem. And we had a wonderful photo this weekend that I don't want to share with anybody, but they've gotten to know a lot of the people they deal with on a regular basis. And it does help because when we show up, people scatter. If BCAT shows up, they know that they're there to offer services, and sometimes they've got a snack or water, something like that, and try to get it connected. They'll give them a ride over to the Heart Center now. If it's the first or second time, we're not a taxi service, we're not taking people back and forth from point A to point B. And the other big thing they're doing is, as of today, they have taken 30 people to a different location other than Bangor to security housing. We don't take somebody and dump them somewhere just because we want them on a Bangor. They call, they make sure they've got a place to go, that they know they're coming, that when we get there at this time, is that acceptable? And that's either we give them a ride, they were giving somebody a ride to Corinna right now, to, excuse me. We got somebody a bus ticket to go back to San Diego, and when she got to San Diego, she called to thank Justin for arranging a bus ticket for her to get to San Diego. And everything in between. So it has really, really helped the officers not having to go and handle this problem that goes from, sometimes it's a minute, they show up and everybody leaves because BCAT, I don't want your services, I'm leaving, to 6 hours, because that's a round trip to Portland or Holton, Presque Isle, something like that. And it has really done a lot for the officers. The officers love it. And the people that we've got working there now, they're doing a really, really good job. Even though they're not technically social workers, one just finally got a degree, got a master's degree in social work, and we're lucky to have her, so we're going to use her as long as we can for this. We are down to 2 active members because the third member, she's going to have a baby. So her doctor said, I don't want you on the street anymore. And her partner's very happy with that. So she is the one that compiled all the data for us today, and she did a fantastic job. She made a chart I'd like to show everybody, because she's very, very proud of this. Can I make a pie chart? I bet you can. So yeah, they're just doing a great job. The 3 of them get along very, very well. They're like siblings. You poke fun at each other, but it's not in a harmful way. And the only point that they're calling to ask the questions, if they don't actually know what the answer is, or to get clearance to take somebody out of town. In town, yep, it's on you. We had somebody recently that they were kind of uncomfortable with, and I decided, okay, I'll be the bad guy. Yeah, we're not gonna take this person for a ride. And it turned out to be a good choice because he got violent later that night with some officers and it escalated from BCAT to the cops. So it's doing its job. I hope we can get a fourth member. We thought we had somebody. He took a different job and now we're open to applicants again. So if you know somebody who's looking.
Yes, Councillor Pelletier.
What sort of training do you offer them when they come in?
They come in with their own kind of thing. So the one that did this stuff, she used to be assistant to the city manager in Belfast. And she's got a very in-depth knowledge of general assistance, which is extremely helpful. So if somebody tries to baffle us with GA stuff, we put Mackenzie on the phone because she speaks their language. The other one worked as she was like a nursing assistant at Acadia Hospital. So she knows a little bit, she's the one with a master's degree now. So she knows a little bit of the medical lingo. And then Justin, the last one, he started security over at Acadia and then worked his way up into an assistant role. So he's really, really good at talking with people because there's no point in fighting with him. And he's very intelligent, very well spoken. Once you get him to talk, he's kind of quiet because he's 21. He's just a kid. You look at him, you think, oh, he's an adult. No, it's really funny because the two women kind of pecking him a little bit. He's a little brother in the situation.
They've all had crisis intervention training.
And yes, we got him through.
We put them through training with our staff, self-awareness, how to remove yourself from a dangerous situation, how to reach us quickly in a dangerous situation. They all have radios. So there's a foundation of training they receive before they're on their own. A lot of it centers around their own safety and how to engage somebody in recognizing when something might not be right.
Councillor Schaefer.
I have two questions. So the first one, do they wear body worn cameras? Are
They do
they?
not.
Okay. And the second one is, when you talk about welfare checks, are there any, like, I feel like we kind of see this as a response to issues on the street, but have you had any welfare checks for my elderly mother lives alone?
Oh, we got a lot of those.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Just
Like
to
I-
save a guy's life.
Yeah.
He was in diabetic shock. And he went for a welfare check and he looked in the window and realized what was going on. Called for an ambulance, then called me to tell me what was going on because he heard all this radio traffic and you did the right thing, guy. Fire department came, busted in the door and got the guy to the hospital.
I just want to, I think that's a story that should be, and I say this because I live between a widow and an elderly couple. I have both of their daughters on my cell phone. I actually asked one daughter who she uses for the lawn for the other one's daughter. And I know that it's not like that in all neighborhoods. So I often wonder where the people who, if their daughters didn't have me, who would someone call? So I feel like that is also maybe a little bit of a message to get out there, or a story to tell, because there's plenty of elders here whose families have moved away and would be happy to know about
For
that.
sure. It's common. If a storm is coming, hot weather, we post on Facebook, call us. If you know of a senior in the neighborhood, somebody that needs to be checked on, shut-ins, call us, we'll go out and check on them.
Yeah.
And if there's a police officer that's not available, BCAT will go out and check on them. So for sure. A lot of our welfare checks involve just what you're speaking of.
Dan and I were out last February when it was 50 below, checking on the people inside to
Yeah.
stay in their tents.
Yeah.
They were all warmer than we were.
But we have a senior population
Yeah, well, yeah.
that we are mindful of in this community for sure.
Councillor Pelletier.
Thank you. I was gonna ask if they were responding to calls during the heat wave a couple of weeks ago.
Oh,
They wound
absolutely.
up giving people rides and.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
took the cooling centers, offered water. Sometimes just sit in the air conditioning car.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate your question about the training, Councillor Pelletier. I think it's important that there is some kind of training regardless of their background. And you're saying they receive some kind of training, and I think it is important regardless of where they came from, or because there is always some specificity to the work they do. So that's where I'm coming from. I think to be built in maybe in the program itself, more than what you
Yeah,
guys
understood.
provide.
One of the things we were hoping when we built this program is to get people from different disciplines. So we could have people that were able to engage at a different level, and we've indeed done that. People from different, from Acadia Hospital, from management at an administrative level, who can bring different thoughts and ideas and different resources to this program. But we're also providing
Yeah.
crisis intervention and related training as well.
Yeah, and maybe it becomes an incentive for them if there are trainings somewhere to grow for them, so
Agreed.
educational development. And
Yes, absolutely.
any other questions? Okay, I think Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
That
Thank
was
you.
good, thanks.
Next items of executive session.
I move to go into executive session one MRS section 5405 consultation with attorney concerning pending litigation.
Second.
So, here, oh, wait, oh, okay. Great,
Yes.
Chair.
Yeah.
Councillor Haas. Councillor Fitch,
Yes.
Councillor Pelletier,
I'm not on the committee.
you're not on the committee, Councillor Trump.
Yes.
Okay, so we
Go in
are
the
in
other room.
executive session.
All right, you're allowed again out of executive.
I move that we approve the settlement as discussed in executive session.
Second.
So we have a move and a second. It's
Mhm.
approved.
Yes. And that's all I have for GovOps.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.